The proliferation of devices, data, and people have made IT infrastructure more complex than ever to manage. Troubleshooting and information overload threatens to slow down ops and interfere with user experience. I'm Rutter from Juniper. A few days ago, I had the opportunity to sit down with a few of my colleagues to discuss AI and how it increases speed to resolution with the direct correlation to user experience. Let's take a look.
Gentlemen, thanks for coming. If you could quickly introduce yourselves.
Yeah, Rick, Bob Friday, CTO of Juniper's Enterprise Business.
And thank you, Rick. Sudheer Matta, VP of Products here at the Juniper's AI-driven enterprise.
Right on. Well, to kick things off, what are some of the concrete areas that Juniper and Mist AI are doing to address some of these challenges?
I think, there's several good stories, but I think one of the most famous one for me was really a big retailer, where we were basically trying to solve some little needle in the haystack problem, where they were having these devices that couldn't actually connect to the network, randomly coming and going off on. It was really a good example where AI, mutual information, was actually able to get to the point of letting you know it was really due to a particular OS model type that was having authentication problems. So that's really the power of AI, is to find these needle in the haystack problems.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and for us at Juniper, we measure the impact of AI, right? So there are 5 things, Rick, I tell every customer. You can take it to the bank. If you come to Juniper, you'll get these 5 things. The fastest deployment, the fewest tickets, right? Imagine going into a network and saying, ServiceNow as an example, cut their number of tickets coming into IT, more than 90% fewer tickets, right? So fastest deployment, fewer tickets, fastest time to resolution. Any problem, let's say, a doctor walks out of surgery, call drops now, and it says, hey, why does my call drop? We're using AI and we're using machine learning to go back and study, sort of recreate reality and say, what really happened there, and what's all the correlations and the causation of what happened there, compile all of that and reduce the mean time to repair for solutions. So first, fast deployments, fewer tickets, fast time to resolution for tickets as they come in. And then last but not least is dramatically simplified operations. These are the 4 IT outcomes you get in everywhere. And then Bob's passion has always been is how do we digitize the experiences for employees, guests, patients, passengers in all these verticals? And so we built a platform for digitization. Even in that, Bob, you've used a lot of AI, even in the digitization.
Yeah, and this is really around the location component of the thing. If you look at how are people connected to the internet, but when we get to our B2C customers, this is hospitality, retail, healthcare, wherever there is a consumer involved in the business, this is your B2C. What we really built is a platform that allows you to basically engage with those customers. Whether I'm at a hospital, I work with the hospital, really around Uber for wheelchairs. Like a vet comes in, right? You want to be able to find that Uber. You want to get that wheelchair and get it to the Uber. That requires location to actually start working. Here at Juniper, COVID tracking. During the COVID, right? You want to be able to track when people came in contact with each other. So that's the other kind of use cases we're seeing around this digital transformation of helping our customers, both B2C and even corporate enterprise customers who are trying to do facilities management now in this new hybrid working space.
That's amazing, guys. Very cool stuff. And everyone is talking about AI ops, right? So what do you think sets Juniper apart from the competition?
Well, Sudheer, there's both ways to this one, right?
It's you two guys,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
So this one here is cloud and AI. Right? If you look at Mist and what we're doing now that differentiates us, and this is one reason why I left Cisco to start Mist, because I saw that there was an architectural opportunity that really required a blank sheet of paper, that I wasn't going to be able to do at a big company. And it started building a cloud that can actually do data science and pipelines, right? And that's basically solving that problem around, I'm not going to deliver things every year, I'm going to deliver things every week, As Sudheer tells you, Christmas comes at Mist every week, right? Every week we get new features for our customers. The other big differentiation is really around AI ops. And this is really that day 2 operational thing. And that's really what's changing in the industry. We've seen AI ops change, how cars drive, how doctors diagnose cancer and image detection. In networking, AI ops is fundamentally going to change how we manage these networks of the future.
It's really cool.
So this is a fundamental question, right? What separates Juniper Mist, our AI ops and AI platforms from everybody else in the industry, right? So tying off of Bob's answer there, right? Bob said it's cloud, right? So first, it's so important. Everybody has cloud. Meraki has cloud. Aruba has cloud. Aerohive has cloud. Everybody has cloud. Why is Juniper Mist Cloud different? It's, as Bob said, it's the pipeline to handle data on a per user, per minute basis. When everybody else's cloud manages their network, we operate based on user's experience. So every user, every minute, we're getting that data into the cloud, being able to process that, being able to collect, collate, and curate that to sort of make meaning on, are we delivering a great experience? So it starts with the cloud, no question, right? And what is proof point? Very simple proof point. Bob said, like when Aruba Central does an upgrade for their cloud, literally there's a 12-hour outage on the cloud, right? The agility on some of our competitors is terrible. Christmas comes every Wednesday at Juniper Mist, right? Literally, we are bringing new features to the cloud every week, every other week, and this is foundational. Agility is important. So user experience, every user, every minute, and then an agile cloud that can actually grow with the customers as their need grows, right? And then, so that's on the cloud side. On the platform side, fundamentally, foundationally different. Yeah, sorry, Bob, you were going to
Yeah, I was going to add, I mean, in doing that Wednesday Christmas,
Yeah.
the thing is doing that with reliability. And so that's that microservice architecture. That's the fundamental change going from an embedded architecture that we were doing at Cisco 20 years ago to what we're doing in the cloud. That lets us do that release every Wednesday reliably, right? Without breaking anything.
Speed and flexibility.
Speed and flexibility.
With reliability.
Yeah, and reliability. The one thing though, when it comes to AI, right? Bob has always built as a pipeline. It starts with data. It starts with great data. Great grapes make good wine. Good wine comes from great grapes.
So I make a barrel of wine every year. Great wine starts with great grapes. Great AI starts with great data.
Great data, right? So great data for us, and then an AI primitive framework that can take that data and correlate and curate that data. And then comes complete a full toolbox of algorithms we've been working on for 7+ years. And then finally, that all gets boiled up into a nice little Marvis virtual assistant. We'll talk about Marvis in a minute. Yeah. But all of this is a journey towards the final answer. The final answer for us is a truly self-driving network, right? A self-driving network meaning when you deploy a Juniper Mist network, I just said we have fewer tickets. How do we have fewer tickets? Just because we threw some AI algorithms at it? No. We have the fewest tickets because we use AI to design the network, to deploy and operate the network, right? Channel partners go in, design, they do site surveys, they deploy the network, great. But the moment they walk off of that premise, that network is changing. The Wi-Fi is a living, breathing thing. So we use reinforcement learning, AI-driven radio resource management to sustain that network at a strong point over a long time, right?
And I think the other thing we've talked about is, in addition to that architecture, is really organizationally. What people don't appreciate with Marvis is in addition to the cloud architecture, is organizationally we have tied that support team right to our data science team. And so people who are trying to solve this problem, that's probably the other key secret sauce into Marvis, is organizationally is making sure those two groups are like acting as one.
Another thing that I hear a lot about location data, you brought it up a little bit earlier, but what are some of the coolest ways that people are using location data to change the way we live and work?
Yeah, I mean, so location is one of these topics as Sudheer knows, has been dear to my heart for the last 20 years or so, is really bringing indoor location on par with connectivity and making it a must-have in the enterprise space. So what I said before is B2C customers, right? Retail, healthcare, all these customers are trying to digitally transform either a customer experience or an employee experience. And we're starting to see it on both levels. On the customer side, it's about wayfinding. Either I'm in a complex hospital or a maze of things. They're trying to bring indoor wayfinding on par with GPS, right? The wheelchair example, right? The Uber, right? They're trying to basically build applications, to help a doctor get a wheelchair to a vet or something, right? Same thing you want with your car, right? I want to be able to sit there and I want to be able to see, how long am I waiting? Are they coming or making progress? That's the same experience you want indoors. So these are all examples that we're starting to see inside of our B2C customers, and we're also starting to see inside of our corporate enterprise customers.
And Rick, if I could add a couple more interesting examples, right? April 2020, in March 17th, 2020, so the Bay Area here got shut down with COVID, right? Literally within under 6 weeks, we turned the Juniper network, right? The same network, no new APs were added, the same network for complete digital contact tracing, right? And so the power of the platform that sort of Bob has envisioned and built for us here is that we are truly today, Juniper Networks is the only networking player who's a leader in the indoor location Magic Quadrant. And so we truly are the only player that can combine best-of-breed wired and wireless with this best-of-breed location services. So contact tracing, especially as employees are coming back. Another very important use case, as it's so relevant now, is during COVID and even before that, companies were consolidating real estate out, right? Real estate is one of the largest line items on everybody's expenditure, and companies are actually trying to optimize that. And how are they optimizing? They're going to digitize workspaces, right? So one of the largest wins Juniper we've had is a financial services company, and there the facilities team contributed a substantial piece of money for the infrastructure IT project because we're digitizing their employee experience as employees are coming back from COVID.
And that's that remote working thing, right? So we had a very large customer that built a smart building, open workspace, right? Hybrid workspace, hoteling, right? But what they have to figure out is why is no one going to that side of the building? Is it the temperature? Is it the furniture? So these are the type of problems that we have to, big companies have to deal with when they move into this new hybrid working model right now, making sure the space is being utilized efficiently.
This is cool, and it's almost like even with IoT, I would imagine this even becomes more important.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting. So we talked a lot about digitization and location, but this conversation is about AI. How did we use AI for enabling this digitization? So let me give you sort of a very simple but very cut and dry comparison with our competitors. 100% of our competitors, every single one of them, if they need to deploy location, they need to go like the old Verizon ad, can you hear me now, can you hear me now? They need to go to every point in the building and do manual calibration. Bob, you've used AI for that, so explain that.
Yeah, so at Mist, actually our very first patent got issued in less than 6 months was for virtual BLE. And the very first use case for AI&ML was basically trying to learn the path loss model in a building for every device, every model inside the building. So that was actually our first example of AI&ML was really around location. And what that really solved is the problem of making sure people didn't have to do fingerprinting and a lot of setup. Because when you look at location, the biggest problem with it has been the complexity of getting it up and running. It's an overlay network, right? If you look what Mist has done, every access point we ship has a virtual BLE antenna built in already. So that totally eliminates the overlay problem, right? Which is what Sudheer was pointing out.
Yeah.
The cloud is what let us get to, in 6 weeks we had COVID up and running, COVID tracking up and running. That was the cloud. But the fact that we had virtual BLE was the other part of it, that everything was enabled for location coming out of the gate.
You put that in context. If I'm a retailer, let's say I have 1,000 retail stores. If they choose our competitor, they choose an Aruba, a Cisco, a Meraki, they actually have to send trained people to 1,000 stores to calibrate them.
Right.
Millions of dollars versus a Juniper network that is using AI for calibration. Think of applying AI in a dramatically different place.
So in that case, the virtual BLE eliminated the overlay, AI&ML eliminated the calibration factor. And so we were the first ones to basically get rid of the need to calibrate these networks for location.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
It is.
What a great opportunity to hear from Sudheer and Bob, to learn about Juniper's AI capabilities and hear how great AI starts with great data. Thank you for joining, and be sure to check out all the great content that we have about AI on the feed.